Democrats ask, whom do you trust?
It is inconceivable to me that any presidential candidate would be that irresponsible. Donald Trump cannot become our commander-in-chief.
I trust Hillary Clinton with our son's life.
Also tonight, are South Florida mosquitoes now spreading Zika? Federal officials have stopped blood donations there until they find out. Airfares drop to lower altitudes.
We've now seen growth by ultra-low-cost carriers that are really offering rock-bottom fares on those routes.
And she could be the first daughter for a second time.
Chelsea really was the only thing that was keeping that family together.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, reporting tonight from the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia.
Tonight, Hillary Clinton takes the podium here to accept the Democratic nomination for president in an election that may very well come down to trust. In a CBS News poll taken after last week's Republican convention, 56% of voters said Donald Trump is not honest and trustworthy. But even more, 67% said that of Clinton. Tonight, Clinton will try to get her numbers down, or failing that, Trump's up. Here's Nancy Cordes.
President Obama said last night he's ready to pass the baton. Clinton's task tonight is to convince Americans they can trust her to carry it.
So let's talk about trust.
Her running mate, Tim Kaine, did his part, using the word trust 9 times.
As he's serving our nation abroad, I trust Hillary Clinton with our son's life. You know who I don't trust? I wonder.
The Virginia senator urged voters not to fall for one of Trump's favorite phrases.
Believe me, we're gonna destroy ISIS so fast, believe me. There's nothing suspicious in my tax returns, believe me.
Folks, you cannot believe one word that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth. Not one word.
And yet the latest CBS News poll found Clinton's numbers are worse than Trump's. 2 in 3 Americans consider her dishonest. The result, in part, of a relentless Republican focus on the Benghazi attacks.
Calling it an attack is like saying the sky's blue. Of course it was an attack.
And her own shifting answers on her use of a private email server.
There is no classified materials.
President Obama touched on the problem last night.
Hillary's got her share of critics. She has been caricatured by the right and by some on the left. She has been accused of everything you can imagine and some things that you cannot. But she knows that's what happens when you're under a microscope for 40 years.
Put Trump under a microscope, he said, and you'll find something far worse, a homegrown demagogue.
Our power doesn't come from some self-declared savior promising that he alone can restore order as long as we do things his way. We don't look to be ruled.
Vice President Joe Biden said Trump lacks empathy.
He's trying to tell us he cares about the middle class. Give me a break. That's a bunch of malarkey.
Clinton's aides tell me she will not try to be some kind of sunny counterpoint to Trump's gloomier outlook last week. They say that she will acknowledge that the nation has serious systemic problems. The difference, they say, is that she will also offer specific solutions to try to deal with those problems in a speech, Scott, that was still being tweaked today.
Nancy Cordes, thanks. Well, Trump's speech at his convention was short on specific solutions. For example, he said that crime will end, but he didn't say how. The theme of the Trump campaign today was damage control. And here's Major Garrett.
Donald Trump spent the day embroiled in a controversy of his own making. This was the GOP nominee yesterday.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Those emails aren't exactly missing. They were deleted from the private email server Hillary Clinton used while Secretary of State. Trump's call for Russian interference comes after a second email scandal. Hackers penetrated the servers of the DNC, leading to the release of 19,000 emails. U.S. officials suspect Russia is behind it. Trump later said his comments were a joke.
Of course I'm being sarcastic, and they don't even know, frankly, if it's Russia. They have no idea if it's Russia, if it's China, if it's somebody else. Who knows who it is?
Rudy Giuliani is a top Trump surrogate and former presidential candidate.
Well, Donald Trump made a mistake, and he corrected it. Now, if he refused to correct it, that'd be a different thing.
And that's part of his evolution as a nominee.
Part of his evolution as a nominee is part of the process of being so transparent and so open.
Trump's comments drew a harsh rebuke at last night's Democratic convention. Former CIA Director Leon Panetta accused Trump of inciting foreign espionage.
As someone who was responsible for protecting our nation from cyber attacks, it is inconceivable to me that any presidential candidate would be that irresponsible.
Meanwhile, Trump tried to suppress viewership tonight when Hillary Clinton speaks. In a fundraising email, he warned supporters would be lied to, belittled, and attacked for their beliefs. Trump may have noticed that TV ratings for the Democrats are beating his GOP convention, defying his prediction last Friday.
Nobody's going to watch this next convention.
Trump said today this convention describes an America that does not exist, one of full employment, border security, and success against ISIS. For context, Scott, Trump also said Putin is a better leader than President Obama, fighting words to be sure on this convention floor.
Major Garrett Forrest, Major, thank you. Well, for many young Americans, this is their first election, and we wondered what they're thinking. So DeMarco Morgan talked to 3 Pennsylvania college students, Aaron Duffy, Breon Buchanan, and Tyra Woods, all of them undecided.
It's a tough situation because we're new voters, so we want to make the right decision for our future.
It's kind of like we don't know who to vote for. Like, I know a lot of my friends feel the same way. There's really no good candidate.
This is our first time voting, so what we've seen so far has kind of been like a spectacle, but you know, we don't really know what to choose.
And what are you looking for?
Looking for somebody who's like going to actually make a change in our country, and even if it's the smallest thing.
What about the conventions? I'm sure you guys paid attention to the Republican convention in Cleveland.
Our convention occurs at a moment of crisis for our nation. The attacks on our police and the terrorism of our cities threaten our very way of life.
I think he was the only one that actually addressed that we are in a crisis, and I think that was very brave of him, but in the sense, I don't think he's handling it the right way. I think he's just being him aggressive self.
And I don't want to be afraid of, because that's how I feel whenever I feel like Donald Trump is speaking, afraid of if he were to get in office and what would happen, like what would the next 4 years be about.
Don't let anyone ever tell you that this country isn't great, that somehow we need to make it great again, because this right now is the greatest country on earth.
Based off of what's happening in the news and everything, it doesn't, even with this election, like, it's a representation of, is America really great?
We were the melting pot at one point. I think that we need to go back to that, and we need to be a little bit more sensitive about different cultures and different ways of life. It's like America, we take 10 steps forward and take 2 steps back. So where's the change going to come in?
Right. What are we doing to actually fix it? What would they do by November that's going to motivate millennials to vote, to get them ready and excited? What's going to push us? Because right now, it's a lot of indifference.
If you don't vote, don't complain when you don't like something that's happening because you didn't vote.
Scott, that recent CBS News poll taken right after the GOP convention found 7% of voters nationwide are still undecided.
DeMarco Morgan speaking to We the People. DeMarco, thanks. Well, American women didn't win the right to vote until 1920. By then, freed slaves had been voting for 50 years. What does tonight mean to Hillary Clinton? We asked her in her only interview with running mate Tim Kaine for 60 Minutes.
What will be accomplished if you are elected the first woman president of the United States?
I think it would be a great moment for our country because every little boy and every little girl should be given the chance to go as far as his or her hard work and talent might take them. I see it in the eyes of little girls who come to my events. They're so excited and they're so proud because maybe they just discovered we haven't had any girl presidents. A lot of them go to restaurants where there are placemats and all of the presidents are men, and then they start asking questions. I just think it will be another step on our journey as a nation, making it clear that this country is open to everyone. Our diversity is a strength, not a basis for condemnation and despair. And to accept that nomination, I'll be thinking about all the women who came before. The suffragettes, the women who knocked their heads against all kinds of barriers and broke through in everything from, space to politics. And I hope that it gives other women and girls the feeling that whatever their dreams might be, they can achieve them in this country.
CBS News live coverage of Hillary Clinton's acceptance speech begins at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central. We'll be joined right here by Nora O'Donnell, Charlie Rose, Gayle King, John Dickerson, and Bob Schieffer. In another important story tonight, there is now growing evidence that mosquitoes in South Florida are spreading the Zika virus. So today, the Food and Drug Administration asked blood banks in 2 counties to stop accepting donations. We have more now from David Begnaud.
The federal request to stop all blood donations is meant to safeguard the blood supply until blood banks are equipped to test every donation for Zika. There is increasing concern tonight that 4 new Zika cases could be the first transmitted by local mosquitoes in the continental U.S. 2 cases are in Miami-Dade County. The 2 others are in Broward County. Officials do not believe they are travel-related. On Tuesday, health inspectors began visiting residents in the neighborhoods where the 4 new Zika patients live and work. They are collecting urine samples to test for any new cases. Dr. Eileen Marty, an infectious disease doctor with Florida International University, was one of those door knocking.
Most people were understanding, but a few were a little bit, it's unusual to have someone knocking on your door with a cooler full of urine samples.
Local mosquito control workers are intensifying their efforts, targeting those same neighborhoods to eradicate mosquitoes and their breeding grounds.
Release the mosquitoes, Josh. Oh my God, they're coming.
Within 5 seconds, one mosquito was trying to get to your arm. What does this show?
This shows the power of mosquitoes' sense of smell and how they're so attuned to human odor.
Dr. Matthew DeJaneiro studies mosquito behavior and genetics at FIU. Repellents that contain DEET are the most effective. How does DEET actually work?
Mosquitoes smell DEET, and then they avoid humans. But even the few that still can find you, if they land on you, they'll taste it on your skin, and they'll be like, yuck, and then they won't bite you, and they'll go away.
There is no vaccine and there's no treatment for Zika. Tonight, people in South Florida are being told, use that DEET repellent. It's the most effective tool yet. Scott, starting tomorrow, the largest blood bank in the southeastern U.S. will test every blood donation for Zika.
We'll be following this closely. David, thank you very much. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News from Philadelphia, why airlines are dropping fares, and later a major development in the murder of Washington intern Chandra Levy. Boeing says that it may stop producing the iconic 747, jumbo jet that helped the jet set take off in the 1970s. The 4 engines burn too much fuel and airlines are struggling to fill the planes. Transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve says that's just one reason that airfares are coming down.
Planes packed with summer travelers should be a sign of success for airlines. But new data shows the average domestic airfare for the first part of 2016 dropped nearly 8% over last year, falling to the lowest point since 2010. Airlines, especially ultra-low fare carriers Spirit, Frontier, and Allegiant, have grown aggressively, expanding capacity just as terror attacks in Europe, economic uncertainty in Britain, a strong dollar, and increased competition are cutting into lucrative routes for United, American, Delta, and Southwest, despite the low fuel prices.
I think you'll see airlines have lower profits than they would have expected for the back half of the year and for 2017.
Josh Marks is an airline consultant.
The major carriers are seeing a lot of competition on routes, particularly in leisure markets where they had a significant market share before. We've now seen growth by ultra-low-cost carriers that are really offering rock-bottom fares.
On average, vacation fares have dropped 17% since last July. LA to Paris round trip went for as much as $1,500. Now it can be had for less than $400. New York to Hong Kong was $900 a year ago. Now it's under $500. Chicago to San Diego rarely dipped below $200 until ultra-low fare carriers added service, dropping fares as low as $80 round trip. George Hobicka runs Airfare Watchdog, a website tracking prices.
I think for domestic travel, these are some of the best airfares we've seen in 5 years. For international travel on some routes, the best airfares we've ever seen.
Thank you for your cooperation.
The airline business is notoriously boom or bust. Last year it was record profits. Scott, now the airlines are lowering their expectations for the rest of this year, but still believe they'll finish it profitable.
Chris Van Cleve, thanks. Still ahead, a mystery in the sky, a mystery no more. Today, federal prosecutors said they will not retry the man convicted of murdering Washington intern Chandra Levy. Ingmar Gwaundike's conviction was overturned after doubts were raised about a key witness. Levy's disappearance while jogging in 2001 created a national sensation when it was learned that she'd been having an affair with a congressman. Baton Rouge held a memorial service today for the 3 law enforcement officers who were ambushed and murdered this month. Montrell Jackson, Brad Garofalo, and Matthew Gerald. Attorney General Loretta Lynch told mourners the city is united by collective heartache. Vice President Biden said of the officers and their families, "We owe you." David Bald Eagle lived up to the high-flying spirit of his Native American name. He was born in a teepee in South Dakota in 1919. He was a U.S. Army paratrooper, shot 4 times in the D-Day invasion of Normandy. Bald Eagle was a tribal chief, a champion dancer, a race car driver, and a semi-pro baseball player. He was in Kevin Costner's Oscar-winning Dances with Wolves, and also made pictures with Clark Gable, John Wayne, and Marilyn Monroe. David Bald Eagle died on Friday. He was 97. A mysterious streak of light lit up social media in the West last night. It was spotted in Nevada, Utah, and California. Some thought it was a meteor. U.S. Strategic Command says today it was the remnants of a Chinese rocket that blasted off more than a month ago and burned up as it re-entered the atmosphere. And we'll be right back. Hillary Clinton will be introduced here tonight by her daughter, Chelsea. The little girl so many of us remember from her White House years is all grown up. And here's Vanita Nair.
That this is the most important election of my lifetime.
On the trail, she uses her mother's smarts.
This is another area where the Supreme Court really matters.
And her father's flair.
Sure.
Thank you so much. At 36, Chelsea Clinton is one of the campaign's most valuable assets. After all, she's been on the trail with her parents since she was 2. In 1991, when Bill Clinton launched his presidential campaign, a then 11-year-old Chelsea could barely be seen. It would stay that way for most of her 8 years in the White House. While her parents tried to shield her from the press's lens, they were less successful against comedic tongues. Her looks were spoofed on Saturday Night Live. Attending Stanford University in California brought Chelsea temporary reprieve from the limelight until her sophomore year, during the height of the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Chelsea really was the only thing that was keeping that family together at that point.
Lloyd Grove, editor-at-large at the Daily Beast, started covering the Clintons more than 20 years ago.
The Clintons took their cue from their friend Jacqueline Kennedy, who actually sat down with Hillary and told her, gave her insight into how she raised Carolyn and John in the White House.
Since then, Chelsea has come into her own. She's taken a more public role at the Clinton Global Initiative.
I always learn something every time I listen to my parents.
And tonight, the mother of two will proudly introduce her mother at the convention.
What do you think she'll do tonight?
It's Chelsea's job tonight to show the human side of her mother.
Woke up, it was a Chelsea morning. The girl named after a Joni Mitchell song, Chelsea Morning, will finally have her night. Vanita Nair, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News from Philadelphia. CBS News coverage of Hillary Clinton's acceptance speech begins at 10 o'clock, 9 Central. We'll see you then.